I want to tell you all about the time I went to prison. The year was 1999, and a 5-year-old me was on his way back from soccer practice with his dad when all of a sudden we had to get gas. So we pulled into the 7-Eleven by my house, and then my dad got out of the car and walked in to pay for gas the way our ancestors did, with cash. So I followed him. And as he was waiting in line, I perused the aisles, and I noticed that there was a Snickers on the wall. I had never wanted anything more in my short little life than that Snickers right there. So I grabbed it and I walked up to my dad and I tapped him on the leg and said, "Dad, can I have this Snickers?" And he said, "No, put it back." And I said, "Dad, you don't understand. If I don't have this Snickers, I will die." And with all the kindness of a tender parent, he leaned over and said, "We'll miss you. Go put it back." So I did, but I was full of rage because I would not be denied a Snickers today, certainly not by this man who mere hours before had forced me to eat vegetables. No. So I did the only thing I could. I put the Snickers back where it went, and then I did a quick scope of the area, and then I picked it back up, and I slid it into my pocket. And then I found my dad as he walked out, and I walked out with him, and nothing happened. And we went home, and nothing happened. I had completed the most impressive heist of the 20th century. Until about an hour later, when my dad discovered me in my room, and there was a Snickers wrapper on the floor, and my chunky little face was covered in milk chocolate, caramel, nougat, and shame. And he said, "Brandon, you've stolen. You've done a terrible thing. You're going to pay that clerk back for what you've stolen." And so he went over to my piggy bank, removed $1.50, or as I would have called it, half my life savings. And we went back to that 7-Eleven, and I shamefully paid that man back. And we went home, and then my dad told Mom everything. And then my mom was wise because she understood two important facts. The first being that I was not good at crime yet. And the second is that the Salt Lake County Correctional Facility had just barely built a new building and were having an open house with tours this weekend. So 2 days later, I got in the van like an idiot, believing that we were going anywhere except specifically prison. And I still continue to believe that, even when we pulled in the parking lot. I just thought we were at a sad mall because I couldn't read the sign. And by the time we got in and got set up on the tour, it was too late. And unfortunately, we were the only people during that tour time. So, Mom, Dad, and criminal Brandon were making their way through this tour. And then, when we got to the large hall with all the cells, my dad stopped the tour guide, explained to him what I had done, and then picked me up, placed me inside the cell, and shut the door. Inside the cell, there was a little bed, a bench that was bolted to the floor, and a stainless steel toilet in the corner where anyone could see you poop. Anyone. And I rattled the walls. I pleaded for help. I tried to start the hashtag Justice for Brandon, but realized I was 6 years too early. And then, after being sentenced to 15 minutes without parole, I screamed and I wailed, but I spent the last few minutes of my time in prison just staring into the barrel of that stainless steel toilet, who had become my only friend. I've since been released from jail. And I tell you that story because I believe that some of the most important lessons in life are often learned as a result of enduring an amount of suffering. And it seems more and more that our generation is less and less willing to pay that price. But it also seems like people from generations past certainly were. Let me explain. If you watch any Civil War documentary, they'll read a letter aloud, and it'll be accompanied by really sad Civil War violin music. And they'll explain their trials and their tribulations, but somehow they remain hopeful. And I'm not sure that our generation would do the same thing given the same circumstances. Let me show you an example. Every single Civil War documentary reads a letter that sounds like this. My dearest Elizabeth, it's been a long and difficult winter. My horse, Sir Walter Cunningham Jr., is currently choking to death on my battalion's last stale biscuit. A biscuit which was, ironically, made out of his older brother, my previous horse, Seabiscuit. And if that were not enough, Elizabeth, 2 weeks prior, one of my legs was bitten off by an alligator who had learned to swim through the snow. Moments later, my other leg was bitten off as well. Not because I believe the alligator was hungry, Elizabeth, but rather because I believe he suffered from an amount of obsessive-compulsive disorder. And my legs must have seemed to him as though two uneven hoodie strings. I can hardly blame him for correcting the problem. Now, Elizabeth, although we have 200,000 miles to go in the snow, uphill both ways, and many of my men are currently still on fire, we remain yet in good spirits. Yours forever, Robert Ulysses Parmenion Carver III. And there's an amount of beauty and melancholy in a letter like that. But what would happen if someone from our generation tried to send the same letter to the same theoretical Elizabeth? I think it'd sound like this. My dearest Elizabeth, it's been a long and difficult winter. I have Hulu, but with ads. I cannot go more than 8 minutes without being tormented by a lizard trying to sell me insurance. I forgot my password and then had to prove to a robot that I am, in fact, not a robot. But it does not end there, Elizabeth. 2 weeks ago, I ordered Canadian bacon on my pizza, expecting a friendlier version of normal bacon. What I got instead was a ham-flavored hockey puck. I have never been more disappointed. And as though that amount of suffering was not enough, whilst playing with my nephew, I asked for a high five. His hands were sticky, and now, so am mine. I cannot even right now. Please send help. Sincerely, Jackson with 2 X's. I'm Brandon. You guys are great.